Coming to you from an undisclosed location, somewhere deep in the heart of the Santa Monica Mountains, I am your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. This is another episode of Questions with L.A. Folks, if you have a question, I'm doing 3 back-to-back shows. I try to play catch-up, and I apologize for that. But there's so many other things to talk about, and even though I answer 4 or 5 questions, and sometimes I get long-winded, we're not making a dent in it, but we're trying. But if you have a question, questions at lamarzulli.net, questions at lamarzulli.net. This is from Sherry. Babylon, LA, I'm new to the subject and learning a lot from you. Well, thank you, Sherry. Really appreciate it. Did the Babylonians use a base 12 number system because they had 12 fingers? Did all the Nephilim have 12 fingers? Thanks. Okay, what we have here, and we've heard this before. People always ask the questions like this. I don't believe they used that because of the 12 fingers. Not all Nephilim, in my opinion, had 6 digits on each hand. I don't believe that. Some tribes did, but not all of them. The ones that finally got over here, the red-haired, double rows of teeth, 6-finger giants, that seems to be, a genetic characteristic of that particular tribe, if I can use that word, of Nephilim. So the number system, but it goes even deeper than this, because the book of Enoch tells us that when the fallen angels came down, they gave the secrets of heaven. They gave wisdom. They gave technology. They gave knowledge to the man on earth. Sariel is a perfect example of that, the fallen angel, who taught men the course of the moon, the 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle. It was given to us by them. And it was a quid pro quo. So they gave us the knowledge of that, and they had access to the women. It's almost like, vampire lore, where you've got to give them permission to come in. You've got to give the vampire permission to come into the house. He just can't come into the house. He has to have permission. And the same thing with a demon. You've got to invite the demon into your life. You just can't come in. There's certain barriers, certain protocols that are put in place. Okay, this is from Rob. And hey, Leah, have you ever heard of John Edmonds encountering aliens on his property of the Stardust Ranch? I just heard a wild story that he slayed one with a samurai sword and it vanished. I know it sounds hard to believe, but I would really like to see you interview him. Is that something you'd be interested in? Wanted to hear your thoughts. I would love to check that out, and I'm going to put that in my stack of stuff. This is 2023, May of 2023, so you can see just how far back on the posting I really am. But look, I don't have I can't really speak to that. I'd have to see the video or whatever, or talk to him about it. Did it vanish? If these are interdimensional entities, then they have the ability to jump through space and time as we know it. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. This is from JG. How is it that man's technology has grown so exponentially since the early 1900s? For thousands of years, man lived in a coarsely woven garments and used animals for labor and transportation. Yet, concerning the writings of the Bible in ancient Greek, etc. manuscripts, they were not stupid people. Then suddenly, in the course of a few hundred years, which is true, mankind began an exponential technology increase to the point where we now have space stations, and Elon Musk is working on a direct mind-to-computer talk. Is it a coincidence that we also seem to have lost along the way the more direct connection with God? I personally kind of think not. Your thoughts, LA. Thank you for your work. Please don't ever stop. Thank you for the kind words. It's extremely interesting how you, and I get this, we can have a timeline like this. And here's our timeline. We can go back, let's say 2,000 years from the time of Jesus. And it's flatlined. I mean, you get some things, but for the most part, people are writing with quill and ink. Books are being transcribed in scriptoriums by monks with funny haircuts and smelly robes. People live in an agrarian economy. They grow their food. They grow and use animal skins. They grow cotton and flax and make linen, and they use animal skins for leather. It's nothing really changes till Gutenberg. And when Gutenberg happens with the printing press, that's sort of the first blip on the ability to read a lot of different books. Because, you were considered a wealthy man before Gutenberg if you had like 5, 6 books in your library. Well, with the invention of the printing press, all of a sudden, bam, now the common man, first of all, can read the Bible, number one. Number two, this opens up a vista of possibilities for the common man. And this is where we get libraries. So it completely puts out of business the monks with the funny haircuts up in the scriptorium, copying on vellum, word by word by word, which, was a daunting task, but they did it. And thank God they did it. Okay, here's something to think about. Some of you will take what I'm about to say and say it's racist. It's not. I'm just quoting historical fact. So the bottom line is this. The Industrial Revolution begins in, let's say, mid-18th century, and it begins to go from there. To the time of the Civil War, you've got railroads and Gatling guns and all sorts of, the sailing vessels made of metal. It's a whole different deal, and there's a progression. Why does it happen now? I'll tell you why I think it happens. For the first time in the history of the world, the common man had freedom and liberty to do what he wanted to do. He no longer was under the direct rule of a king or the king's stinking son or draconian laws or high taxation. All that was gone. We're talking about the United States of America after the Revolutionary War. That's the game changer. So I'll just give you one example. Orville and Wilbur Wright. They invented the airplane. The Italians, my people, did not invent the airplane. I'm not a racist for saying that the Italians didn't do it. And I'm picking on my own ethnicity for a reason. So I won't be called a racist. But the Italians did not invent the airplane. Orville and Wilbur did invent the airplane. I would point out to you that there's a reason for this. They had liberty to do so. Yes, they had a bicycle shop, but they weren't taxed heavily, number one. Number two, they had liberty to pursue what they wanted to pursue. That's in our Constitution. You can pursue your dreams. You don't have someone hanging over your head for generations. Oh, you're going to work in the field. And education's only for the noble class. So all that's changed with America. Now, it's in a state of flux right now. We may lose some of that liberty. But I would point out that the reason why you have this just influx, you have an explosion of technology, because mankind, for the first time in history, because of our Constitution, had the freedom and liberty to pursue what they wanted to pursue. So going back to Wilbur and Orville, I think it can fly. I remember when I'm in Oklahoma and there's a picture of that, it's famous, where that double-winged airplane with one of the Wright brothers laying in it, and it's airborne. It's airborne. Kitty Hawk, it's airborne. And they invented the airplane, and the rest is history. From that, all sorts of inventions happened because mankind, men and women, for the first time in history, had the liberty, the freedom to pursue what they wanted to pursue. Lots to think about there. Okay, let's continue. This is from Laura. Dear Leah, I love all your shows. I have some of your books and videos. Well, thank you for your support. I appreciate it. Been watching you for at least 8 years. Thank you for all you do. Again, thank you, Laura. Dear Leah, I love all your... Oh, her question, sorry. I have a friend who is not really into the New Age, but he believes in karma. He believes that because he is a mortal, decent, respectful person, that karma shines on him. How can I turn this around and help him see it's God who gives all good things? Looking for a way to show him Jesus' love and a segue to presenting Christ and him crucified to him. Thought you might be able to help, knowing your younger years. Thank you sincerely, Laura. Well, the bottom line is God calls us. He called me when I was 30. I gave my life to him. I accepted Jesus as my personal Savior, which is something that I used to scoff at and laugh at. I thought that I needed a perfect master. And of course, I embraced the whole Eastern mysticism, Eastern gurus and all that. My third eye was open, and we won't get into details. It's in my testimony in one of my books, and we're actually using a testimony again for the rungs on the ladder of disclosure, the rungs of disclosure, the new book coming out. More about that at the end of the show. But I digress as usual, and I've got my mug to prove it. Here you go. So, the whole system of karma is based on, well, if I do good works, then might not come back in my next lifetime. So karma is based on reincarnation. The Bible says very specifically that we are born once and then judgment. Born once and then judgment. That's it. That's how it works. That's what I believe. Those in the East who believe in reincarnation, that wound up creating the caste system, where the Brahmin caste was the top, and those were the people that were amazing, and they had good karma, and the people who had screwed up, they were the untouchables, couldn't even touch them. They had really screwed up, and they were living a life of misery because of their past lives. It's a horrible concept when you think about it. And who's up there keeping score with all the karma? Hello? We're told that we are all fallen in nature. And my retort to your friend would be, has he ever lied? Has he ever gotten angry? Has he ever cursed someone? Has he ever done things which he knows he shouldn't? Has he ever stolen from someone? Read the 10 Commandments. Why are they there, right? Karma is an Eastern mysticism construct, which basically was brought over here in the 60s, where all these gurus came over. The Beatles were in some ways not completely responsible, but the Beatles brought in with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. They were all into him, and they went over to India, and I bought into it. I mean, I was completely immersed in the New Age. And I'll just say this, I meditated every day, an hour in the morning, an hour at night. I became a strict vegetarian. I lived in the ashram. I was celibate for the 3 or 4 years that I was there. And I dedicated my life to the guru. And after we were at the we were in Houston rehearsing with the guru's orchestra, 56-piece orchestra. And I was writing all these compositions for the orchestra, which was a great experience. But I remember one night, like 3 or 4 in the morning, coming out of my room and prostrating myself in front of the guru's picture. There was a dais with a throne and his picture and flowers and candles always burning in case he showed up. So I prostrated myself in front of the picture and I wept bitterly. I've only wept like that 2 or 3 times in my 73 and a half years. Bitterly. I mean, great heaving sobs. And the reason why I did this, because I realized after all those years, after 3 years of meditating and dedicating my life and listening to satsang, truth, and all this other stuff, and following the guru and laying my life down for him, I was the same schmuck I always was. Nothing had changed. When I became a Christian 44 years ago, everything began to change. And my first mentor, Wayne Kendall, used to talk about this. Well, Marzulli, he's just rearranging the wires. And it was painful. First 3 years I was celibate by his choice. I was in what I would call a monastery, even though it wasn't a monastery, but it was a self-imposed monastery. I was at the church. Anytime that church was open, I was there. I was counseling with my pastor, Pastor Fred Nicholas, twice a week in the beginning, and then once a week, and then once every 2 weeks over a period of time. And Pastor Fred even said to me, he'd never seen anybody go through the type of spiritual warfare I was going through, but he had no solution to it, and that would be another few years. Even Wayne didn't know, to put on the armor of God, didn't know about Ephesians 6. If they did, they didn't tell me about it. So once I found putting on the armor of God and that the sword of the Spirit is the Word of God, that's when everything began to shift and I began to push back the enemy. The bottom line is, I heard this from Pastor Dan Plord. He said it a couple of times. We spend we inherit and we get all this garbage dumped on us in the first 5 to 10 years of life, and then we spend the next 50 trying to undo it. I'm a testimony to that. I have to walk very closely with the Lord, and it's taken me years to unwind some of the things that were put on me as a child. So But, greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. So I hope that helps. Okay, I'll do one more. Now, see, this is great. I have one. I just keep it pithy, folks. Keep it pithy. And again, if you've got questions, questions at lamarzulli.net. Hello, LA. Hope all is well with you. Have you heard of Charles James Hall? He wrote a book claiming he spent time with a different species, which he called the tall whites. Who are the tall whites? Yeah, I've heard about the tall whites. I'm not sure what to think about it. They are there, and I've got to do some more homework on this. I'll put that in my homework pile, and I'll definitely get into this. I will order the book and read about it. The tall whites, I believe, may be what fallen angels actually look like when they manifest here. They shapeshift into the tall whites. I do not believe for a second that these entities are benevolent. None of them are. The tall whites, the grays, the insectoids, the reptilians are all part of the same crew. They come and they do nasty things to people. And this is why we've got our 10-part UFO series. And I will definitely check that out. But thank you for writing in. I appreciate it. Folks, our new book is coming out in October. There's a pre-sale on that right now. If you go to lamarzulli.com, you can sign up for the pre-order. It's an autograph book plus $5 off. So once again, if you ordered it at the full price at $21, and we know who you are, instead of just PayPaling you that, we're just going to stick a $5 bill in the book that'll be autographed. So no worries, you're going to get your $5 back. But we have a pre-sale going on. It's till around the 1st of October. Once I get the books, the pre-sale is off and we go full price. But now's the time. It's probably, I think, one of the most important books I've ever written, The Rungs of Disclosure. And it traces the ongoing UFO phenomena right up till, and by the way, it's right up until the present day, but it's interactive because there's a link there, Rungs of Disclosure, which we don't have set up on the website. When you go there, there'll be posts that I will be posting. There's videos to see, all sorts of things. So it goes hand in hand with the book. Really cool. So anyway, I hope to check that out. Go to our streaming site, streaming.lamarzulli.net. You can stream all 30 films. We are now working on the Holy Fire film. More about that in the days to come. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with another Questions for LA. Hey folks, L.A. Marzulli here. I've got book number 14 coming out. It's being published by Charisma Media. It's called Rungs of Disclosure. Let me whet your appetite. What is it, 77 years ago, something happened in Roswell, New Mexico? Was it really a weather balloon or was it something else? Folks, one of the very first chapters in that book delves into the whole Roswell event. What I think happened there was a cover-up, and it began the deliberate obfuscation that continued until 2017. And Tucker Carlson asked Commander David Fravor, in your opinion, what was this tic-tac-shaped UFO that you saw? Commander David Fravor looks right at the camera and says, whatever this was not from this earth. That's the nexus. That's the beginning of the Rungs of Disclosure book. I think it's the most important book I've ever penned. Go to lamarzulli.com, lamarzulli.com. You can pre-order the book, save $5, and that book will be autographed by yours truly. Don't forget, folks, UFOs are real, burgeoning, and not going away. In my opinion, this is the coming great deception that Jesus warns us about.